Good morning, Rabotai. Welcome to Breakfast and the Class. Breakfast and the Class today is sponsored in loving memory of Lillian Lee Rishti, Alea Shalom, Lilu Nishmat Lea Bat Mazal. Alea Shalom, sponsored by her daughter Robin Beta. Breakfast and the Class as well has been dedicated in honor of Rabbi Shlomo Farhi, Yishtabach Shemo, for reigniting the flame for so many. May he and his family always be blessed and guarded by Hashem. Sponsored by Ira Frankel. As well, we have Breakfast and the Class dedicated in loving memory of Jack Levy, Alav Shalom, and as well as a thank you and a Seudat Hoda'ah for Yitzhak ben Sarah for his Refuah Shalema. My friends, we have a very interesting paragraph in our parasha this week. The Jewish people are traveling in the desert and they start complaining about how long and how arduous and how difficult the journey is. And after they keep complaining, eventually, they've been told time and time again that they're going to be punished for complaining. Vayishalach Adonai ba'am et nechashim haserafim. And God sent the snakes, haserafim, which literally means the burning ones. So one way of reading it is the burning snakes. Vayinashechu et ha'am, and they bit the people. Vayamot am rav Yisrael, and many people died in this attack of poisonous snakes. The people come to Moshe vayomeru, and they say, Chatanu, we've sinned. Ki dibarnu ba'Hashem ubach, we spoke about Hashem and about you. Hitpalel elam, when I speak to God, vayaser me'alenu et hanachash, and let him take away the snake from us. Vayitpalel Moshe ba'adam, and Moshe prays on behalf of the people. So what's God's response? And Hashem says to Moshe, Aseh lecha saraf, make for yourself a snake, v'sim oto al nes, and place it on a staff very high, v'haya kol hanashuch, and anyone that is bitten, v'ra'a oto, they will look at this snake on a staff that you've built, this statue, and they will live. Vayas Moshe, and Moshe makes nachash nechoshet, a snake made out of copper, vayisimehu al hanes, and he places it on the stick. And if anyone got bitten by the snake, v'hayim nashacha nachashet ish, v'hibit el nechasha nechoshet v'chai, and he would look at this copper snake and he would live. Now, our Chachamim explained to us right away, of course it doesn't mean that they were looking at the snake and there was any power in the snake, but rather, instead of looking down at the bite, if they looked up at this snake which was on a staff that was elevated, the act of lifting their eyes up reminded them that this wasn't coming from below, from a snake, it was coming from Borei Olam. And when they lifted their eyes to Shamayim, to heaven, and prayed to God and recognized the source of their troubles, they did teshuvah and they were healed. My friends, I want to direct your attention to the words of Rashi, because I think that there's a tremendous lesson here. Rashi says that after the people complained, and God said to Moshe to make a snake, Moshe made a snake made out of nechoshet, out of copper. And Rashi says, Lo ne'emar lo la'asoto shel nechoshet. God never told him to make the snake out of copper, just God told him to make the snake. Ela amar Moshe. Moshe said, Hakadosh Baruch Hu koreo nachash. God calls it a snake. Va'ani e'esenu shel nechoshet. I will make it of copper. Lashon nofel al lashon. One word, one expression falls on the other. What does that mean? The word nachash and the word nechoshet have three of the same letters. The nechoshet only has the taf at the end. So one word falling on another word, I'm going to make nachash out of nechoshet, because God calls it nachash, a snake. The Ramban asks, the Nachmanides asks a great question. He says, take a look. God never called it a snake. God said, Aseh lecha saraf. Make for yourself saraf. Now, I mentioned to you earlier that God sent to them hanechashim haserafim, the snakes, the burning ones. But really, the word saraf could also mean a snake, as we saw that God said, Aseh lecha saraf, make for yourself a snake and put it al nes. So asks Ramban, what is Rashi talking about? You know why Moshe made it of copper? Because the word for copper is nechoshet. And God calls it a nachash. God told me to make a nachash. So nachash, nechoshet, I'm going to make the snake that God told me to make out of nechoshet, which is the same letters, and therefore they must have overlapping features and overlapping powers. My friends, Ramban's question is very powerful. God never said make nachash. He said, make saraf. So what's the answer to this question? So I looked, and I was trying to find an answer for Rashi. And there's a beautiful answer from Rashi, from the Bartenura. Bartenura writes, he says as follows. Rashi doesn't say, Hashem told me, Amar li, God told me to make a nachash, because indeed he didn't. God said make a saraf. It says God koreo, God calls him nachash. That just means that the name of this being, of this animal, previously HaKadosh Baruch Hu has called this animal nachash. And therefore Moshe says, I'm going to double down on the inherent power of the nachash to bring the healing, and I'm going to double nachash it. Nachash and nachoshet, okay? So the Bartenura already answers a little bit of this. He says God did not tell him to do that, but Moshe was following the origin name of the species, which God had called it nachash. When? In the beginning of time. When God speaks about the first nachash in history, we hear the name nachash, we don't hear the name saraf. My friends, but the Bartenura goes further, and he says something magnificent. He says, if you looked carefully, the Jewish people spoke about God, Ba'adonai, Uba Moshe. They spoke about God and Moshe. Why did you take us out of Egypt? Why did you bring us? They had sinned to God and Moshe. Therefore, when God punished them, he gave them two separate punishments, says Bartenura. He said nachash, one type of snake, and saraf. The nachash was sent in punishment for the fact that they had complained against God. It says Ba'amunai Moshe. It says also Ba'nechashim, Hanechashim and Serafim. So therefore, the nachash, the snake that was called nachash, was sent as a punishment for God. And the saraf was sent as a second punishment for speaking bad about the Sadiq, about Moshe Rabbeinu. Therefore, God says to Moshe, now it's beautiful, Aseh lecha saraf, make for yourself saraf. God says, I'm not worried about me, about my honor. I'm punishing them now. I've forgiven them already. But I don't want them to take advantage. I don't want them to make fun of. I don't want them to complain against you. So aseh lecha saraf, that's why he says lecha. Make for your honor a saraf. Moshe Rabbeinu, who's also only thinking about Borei Olam, not thinking about himself, he says, I don't care about my honor. What am I going to make? Moshe, vayas, Moshe, nechash, nechoshet. Moshe literally doubles down to say, no, I'm not making this for me. This is not about my honor. I forgive them. The lesson they need to learn here is not to speak badly against Borei Olam. Look at this loving relationship between Moshe and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where God is literally saying, I've forgiven mine. I'm worried only that they should treat you with respect. You ever see parents where a child is disrespectful and the father says, I don't care if you speak that way to me, I'm harsh. But how dare you speak that way about your mother? You know how sensitive she is. You know how much she cares. You know she's in her room crying. Later on, the mother comes down with puffy eyes. She's like, you know something? I don't mind. I'm here all the time in the house with you. I know the way you speak. But your father, he's not used to being disrespected like that. You really should go apologize. Each one of them is really worrying about each other. What a beautiful hallmark of a loving relationship between two beings. You find it between two beings on earth, but here you find it between Moshe Rabbeinu and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Each one is worrying only about the other. But Rabotai, I want to take it really one step deeper. The Chizkuni says, why did they use nechoshet? Why did they use copper? Because copper is very shiny and it can be seen over a very large distance. It can be seen from one side of the Jewish camp to the other. They didn't put snakes up everywhere. They put one stick with one snake wrapped around it in the middle of the camp. And it was high enough and shiny enough that all of the Jewish people from all around, the entire camp of the Jewish people, hundreds of thousands, millions of people were able to see it and spot it from afar. Today, that stick with the snake wrapped around it has come to be the universal sign for ambulances and medicine. And that relates back to this first time when something was healed using an external source. But Rabotai, this idea, the shininess of Nechoshet, Lashon nofel al lashon, teaches us a very important lesson. You know what the power of the Nachash is? The very first time the Nachash appears in the Torah, what does he do? He speaks Lashon Hara. He says, Borei Olam, you know why he doesn't want you guys to eat from the tree of knowledge? He's selfish. He doesn't want you also to be like gods. He's not empowering you. He's not recognizing his privilege. He wants to keep everyone else down in order to keep himself up. That's what the Nachash says about Hashem. He says he knows, Ki biyom acholcha mimenu, on the day that you eat from the tree of knowledge, you also be gods. So the power of the Nachash is in his speaking Lashon Hara about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Therefore, all these generations later, the speaking ill of God, the speaking Lashon Hara about Hashem is also represented by a snake. My friends, Moshe Rabbeinu seeks to undo that by teaching the Jewish people, look, I'm going to make this snake and I'm going to stick it on the staff and I'm going to put it in and I'm going to make it out of Nechoshet, because the root of Nechoshet, of Nachash, is something that could damage very, very far away. It's very shiny. It's very clear to see. For people who are miles away, they can still see the impact of what that's done. And that, my friends, is the power of a negative word. I just want to kind of wrap this all together, because I think that there's something here that's very, very beautiful. And that is that when the Jewish people were complaining about God, why is that Lashon Hara? They're saying that these roads are very arduous. It's hard to travel. I'm very tired. I'm very hungry. I'm very hot. Is that Lashon Hara? They ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the Pasuk, they say, Hashem, Lama, right? Lama He'elitanu, why did you take us out from He'elitunu? Why did you take us out from Mitzrayim? Lamut b'midbar, to die in the desert. Ke'en lechem, ve'en mayim, there's no bread, there's no water. Ve'nafshenu katza be'lechem akil. We're done already. We're finished with this man. We've had so much of it. We don't want any more. Okay? In what way is that Lashon Hara about Moshe and about God? All they asked was, why'd you take us out if we're going to die in the desert? Now hold on. Are they going to die in the desert? Yes. This is still the generation of the Meraglim that are going to die before they go into Eretz Israel. Not only that, Ki en lechem ve'en mayim, they just had this whole story where they didn't have water. It's coming right after the story with hitting the rock. Do they have bread? No, they don't have bread. The whole idea of the man was something that was instead of bread. So every single word they said, it was true. And on a simple level, one of the ideas that we learn here is that Lashon Hara is even when something is true. So when you're just about to speak about someone, you say, look, did I say one word that wasn't true? I just said the truth. I'm only telling you the truth. This idea, I'm only telling you the truth, does not mean that you're not speaking Lashon Hara. And if something is negative in nature, it's going to hurt somebody else, that still constitutes Lashon Hara, even if it's true. So before you say something, don't ask if it's true. Ask if it's helpful. That's one point. The second point over here is, I think there's something even more insidious, and that is as follows. What was the Nachash suggesting when he said to Adam and Chava, nah, don't worry, eat from the tree. This God, he has his own best interests in mind. He's only trying to look out for himself. He wants to be the only one with the power. Really? Nachash, why didn't you eat from the tree? Why are you not a God? Good question. I don't know why Chava didn't ask that question. Question number 2, okay? What is the complicated, what is the ulterior motive that the snake is suggesting that God had? That he wanted to be the only one who was going to be a God. I think that's a second lesson over here with regards to Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara doesn't only mean that someone is doing something bad. Even if someone says that somebody's doing something with the wrong intentions, that's enough to be able to say that constitutes and classifies as Lashon Hara. That means that if God told him not to eat from the tree, and he wants to be God, he's allowed, he gave him everything. To say that his intentions are, he's out for the power, that's enough to be called Lashon Hara. Even if it's up to him, he's allowed to do that. So as an example, someone says, you know what, the boss didn't give me a raise. Well, do you deserve a raise? No. But you know what, he's stingy, he's not giving me a raise. He doesn't owe you a raise. So I could think that that's not Lashon Hara. You know why? Because he didn't do anything wrong. I didn't say he did anything wrong. I did say the truth. All I attributed to him is negative thoughts. That's also, my friends, Lashon Hara. So as an example, person goes to their father-in-law, their mother-in-law's house for Shabbat, and then they're making comments to their wife, about her parents, your father always thinks this, your father always does that, even if he did nothing wrong. But I'm intimating that the person has bad intentions of, the guy's a control freak. He's only trying to, to make sure that everything is going his way. It's his house. He's entitled to have everything his way. You moved in to deal into his house for the summer, and now you're complaining that he wants things the way he wants them? That's how it should be. A man should be able to, and a woman should be able to run their own house the way they want to run their house. You're guests in that home. Even that's Lashon Hara. To say he wants to run his own house the way he wants to run his own house, you're making it sound like he's not sensitive to other people in the home, even if he doesn't have to be. That's also Lashon Hara. Even to say that someone is having bad thoughts. My friends, now we understand why the concept, the miracle of healing the Jews happened in this way. Many other times we find that there's a problem. They go to Moshe. Moshe prays. And what happens? Hashem fixes the problem. Hashem doesn't need props. So as an example, could you imagine? Moshe comes up, forgive the Jewish people for the golden calf. Hashem's like, okay, go down, make for yourself, a golden calf, put it on a stick. That doesn't happen. Even though there's para aduma, no one ever makes that connection in the Torah. God doesn't make that connection in the Torah. Moshe doesn't make that connection in the Torah. It's Rabbi Moshe Darshan, thousands of years later, who explains that there's a hidden meaning behind it. But there are no props. How come when Moshe goes to Egypt and Paro says, pray for me that they should go away? Moshe prays, Hashem takes away the makkah. How come Moshe Rabbeinu is not told by Paro? Hashem says, wear a fur coat, flap the fur coat like this, and say to him, that we don't find it. Only here there's a prop. What's going on? Why did this message require a prop? And the answer is, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu was saying is, here, create something that you can see from very far away. Everyone is already deciding from very far away that I know exactly what's going on. I could see it. I see what's going on. I'm looking from 2 miles away. What could I see if I'm 2 miles away from that? I see barely bizarre. I see the sun shining on a shiny object. Could I really make out what it is? Such is the nature of people who receive Lashon Hara. They become experts in everything. They know the whole story. They know why this guy did it. They know how come he quit. They know how come that guy was fired. They know why the family broke up. They know why this guy got divorced. They know why that kid got thrown out of school. Everyone's an expert. This is what the guy, you know why he passed away. The guy, he was doing this, he was doing that. I know, whatever. I know. I spoke to his doctor, the cousin, the uncle, right? From far away, all of a sudden you're an expert. What Moshe Rabbeinu was telling them is, I want you to, from far away, be able to look at something and understand. I'm looking at a nachash, but actually, what I'm looking at is not what it is. Who's the one that's healing me, even though it looks like the snake at my feet? I take that snake, I lift it up so that the person's chin is brought to the heavens, and the person realizes that what they're looking at is not what it seems to be. That is the power of the nachash nechoshet, that someone recognized that maybe my perspective is not giving me everything I need to see. Maybe I could see it because something shiny caught my eye, an interesting story, a nice bit of gossip. I looked up, wow. But my friends, that moment teaches you that what you think you see oftentimes is not what you're seeing at all. And that is really the panacea, the heal-all for Lashon Hara, is to recognize that all the time, the thoughts that you think you have, i.e., I think I understand the person's motivations, I'm attributing, this is why God said don't eat from the Etz Hadat. I'm attributing thoughts to that person, or I'm making up my own thoughts. Just stop for 1 second and maybe admit that the thing that you're looking at might be something else entirely. Shabbat Shalom. Have a great day.